we've scoped the territory. We kind of all may be coming at it from different ways and places, but we kind of are seeing now what the field is and where we have to operate, and that it is around social challenges and social innovation, and it is around collaborative, open, networked. It is about design being both. It's about the culture of design rather than the business design again. It's design and its capability of not being nervous at an empty page or at creating something from nothing. It's about design and its ability to put people first and take a human focus. It's about design's discipline in being integrators and mediators and facilitators, fundamental in our open and collaborative innovation processes. This is the worldview that we grew up in, and it was based on industrial market thinking. It started around the 1760s, 1770s, first of all in Britain, and anyway in the West, and it was based on mass everything, basically. Mass markets, mass man, mass woman, mass consumption. And the name of the game, and by the way, I'm not being critical of this, it made sense then. We didn't have anything. So a lot of the stuff that it gave us at a price that we could afford enhanced our quality of life. Now it's giving us a lot of trouble. But it was basically about economies of scale. The aim of this worldview was big and to go towards economies of scale in which you were able to lower the price and make it affordable, at the same time increase the profit for the investors. So this worldview was a machine-based one. It had a machine view. So our thinking was based on more mechanistic, deterministic, linear thinking process where you could predict things. And then, and this is what's great about worldviews and why this hung together for such a long time, is you then need to enforce this view. And so you do that through a process of fairly simplistic top-down command and control structures, known as, in my world, as pyramids, but also as hierarchies. Authoritarian, simple, but effective for a mass world. And in here is a whole set of values. And Chris also talked about the importance of context. And the values in this pyramid are primarily to get to the top of it. So it's a very competitive environment in one way. It's opening up now, but fundamentally there's a lot of politics in these pyramids, which unfortunately now is diverting us from the main task, which is change and innovation. So in here, it's about winners, losers, winner takes all. It's about success in wealth. It's often about greed, etc., etc. And underlying all this is the idea also that we are masters of the universe. We are coming from an age where we believed we were masters. I use the male term here. We were masters of the universe. And the universe was there for us to do what we wanted. Basically, the future was an empty space. We could just chuck more and more stuff at it and take more and more stuff out. So this was, it's of course, a parody. And by the way, this framework, Pyramids to Pancakes, is there as a probe. It's a design tool. It's a provocation. Of course, it will never be one or the other, but it's a thinking tool. But then three things happened. The first was that people came out of their boxes. This was a very conformist world. It was linear and it was conformist. But three things have changed. One is changing. One thing that's changed is that 6 billion people are doing all sorts of things in all sorts of ways, and we're hearing about it. We travel. It comes into our living room through the television. We see it in social network sites. We read it in the media. Suddenly, you know, the world is a big candy store in terms of lifestyles. Oh, I don't have to. This in sociology is called reflexivity. I don't have to live like that. I can live like this. I can do that. So you start to DIY and you start to become a bit biographers of your own lifestyles. So people have come out of their boxes. And here, we definitely can't talk of consumers because the passive mass market consumers of here have become the active producers of here. You just think now, with all of the social network sites, etc., and the new 3D printers that are emerging, etc., but fundamentally already, thousands of people are creators of their own film, their own networks, their own stories, their own books. So we cannot talk about a consumer anymore. It's much more like to be a producer. Now, all of this has done one thing. You would say, well, this is pretty big change. But what I'm arguing is the change is so much deeper because the very organizational structure is changing. Because all of what I've said has flattened the pyramid. And it has become, I call it a pancake, pyramids to pancakes. And here you will see there is no truth. You see, the interesting thing about hierarchies is they normally believe that at the top, somebody holds the truth. It's a CEO, or originally it was God. And then the priests, men, women, and children at the bottom. And then the Anglo-Saxons kicked God off and put technology up there and replaced the priests with the scientists, men, women, and children at the bottom. Our latest incarnation of truth, we've kicked off them as well, and we've put up there the market. And we've put the financial boys in here, men, women, and children still at the bottom. Right. You will see here there is no single truth. There is a centre to which many people interpret that centre differently. Partly the conflicts we're seeing at the moment between structured thinkers and fundamentalists and more open thinkers. And in here, some people call it God, some call it nothing, some nirvana. There are many interpretations. And people as groups and individually walk their way to the middle. But if we are to have the values here of extreme competition, winners and losers, we will die because we will have constant war over resources. And we will continue to beat to the drum of scarcity, which I will talk about later. So we must make an evolutionary leap anyway towards a new set of values which are based much more on collaboration, cooperation, transparency. Because applying those values to this complexity would be a very dangerous thing indeed. But I think there's another thing that's holding us back, and that is lack of new stories. When we go about fear of the unknown, you're quite right, but let's then make the future a bit more accessible. Let's make it so that there are some stories around a possible future, so it just becomes a bit more touchy-feely rather than the big abyss, and so we'll stay where we are. So I think also it's a lack of imagination. And I believe, while we've heard a lot today about how, and I've said how design must go into the co-creative field and into the groups, design does have another excellent quality. Its ability to deal in big visions. Put them out there, start a dialogue, and provoke a discussion. So I see two ends of the spectrum for design. One is to continue to develop insightful visions in which you can engage people, and you can tell new stories, and you can inspire people so they're not so scared about this future, and at the same time, the other end of the spectrum, work in the field. But how about we start thinking about new development models? How about, in our new pancake world, we start to think about new production and consumption. Not centralized and big oil, big factories, mass markets, but much more decentralized, distributed, local production and consumption. That means we have resilient communities, we have resilient regions. So the idea here is not that we concentrate everything in big, but that we actually decentralize and we once more root our production in the local social and environmental qualities of the area. However, are the big companies ready for this? Ignore that. You can't go there. Are they ready for this? Are they ready to face this massive change? Well, the probability is not. And the reason they're not is because they are run by management. Management was invented in the 19th and 20th century, and it was to deal with the big logistic problems of the 19th and 20th, mass distribution, mass logistics, mass markets, etc. And it's managed most of that. Now, the trouble is that this is the language of management. Control, structuring, budgeting, evaluating, controlling. I just feel heavy using those words. But we don't need that at the moment. What we need is to reinvent just about everything as we go from past to future, pyramid to pancake. And that's about innovation. And the language of innovation is so different, isn't it, ladies and gentlemen? It's about questioning, exploring, risking, making mistakes. This is our problem. This really is our problem. That in fact, what we need now, we can't get because there's an obsession still with the bureaucratization and management. And the problem about it is that this, understandably, is still trying to control and standardize complexity. It will die trying. Whereas actually, and this is the point, we need to decentralize complexity. We need to decentralize it out and spread capacity through the system down to the front lines, down to the people who live the problem. We've heard about it today. We've heard of it from Chris in the public sector. Now we have to take that. It's not experts anymore. Experts can be facilitators. It has to go to where people live the problems and hold the solutions. So it's about decentralizing it. Evolution in the natural world is about constant experimentation, adaptation, experimentation, adaptation. And perhaps this is our metaphor more than the machine metaphor, planet or gatewayed processes, etc., etc. Evolution is about constant experimentation, keeping what works. Evolution refines and improves complex systems through a process of adaptation. I believe that's the metaphor for the pancake and the new age. It is to free people in collective innovation processes, but particularly to empower people who own the problem to be part of the solution, because they own the creativity and the intelligence to do it, which is where design can certainly facilitate. Now this means, imagine, ladies and gentlemen, with me, because this is the bit I'm kind of thinking about at the moment. This is interesting because when you have more people doing more things, then you have more. More is more. Not anarchy. More people doing more things produces more. Now that's really interesting because the pyramid is based on a principle of scarcity. Scarcity says there is not enough to go round. Therefore, we must fight each other, we must compete with each other to get what we can get. It therefore elevates scarcity competition to the highest level of progress in society. There is scarcity, there is not enough to go round, therefore competition is a means of ensuring growth and progress. And it supports this through Darwinism and saying that man, I use the masculine again, man is nasty, brutish and short and will always drive towards the survival of the fittest. And then you start to think, don't you? Hang on a minute here, though. It's true evolution did teach us to fight and to be aggressive and to be competitive. But as we know, ladies, evolution also taught us to love, to care, to share. Right? We never hear about that. That's because often what women do is invisible. But actually, evolution has taught us both aspects. My argument, therefore, is if we are those conscious beings, the most conscious beings we know, we can now make a conscious choice to be good. We can make a conscious choice, because we have to now express those evolutionary traits that we've always had but have not been emphasized in the pyramid, which is those of love, care, share, and collaborate. And furthermore, we don't have scarcity because, as I've said, social innovation, doing things, spreading and distributing complexity means more is more. Scarcity is a myth, actually, I'm thinking. Scarcity, we don't have scarcity. We have a problem of distribution and ownership, with too few people owning too much and too many people not owning enough. It's the resource war that we were hearing about. And so perhaps, in essence, therefore, we can now say that we have the potential to go away from the principle of scarcity towards the principle of abundance. And I would argue, ladies and gentlemen, on this, that Europe, the first to go into the last paradigm, should be the first to offer a vision for the new one. We don't need to do all this consuming. The emerging countries still do. But we can start to propose an alternative development model to the one that is at the moment paramount, because it almost is our responsibility as we were first in, and we don't need all this stuff. I have had a number of successes and a number of failures, but I think my biggest success was that a group of people, mainly in Holland, got together and said, we like this, and they've set up a movement. And this is the thing I am most proud of. This is my legacy. I needed a legacy, and this I am most proud of. And it may last a day, but for the day that it lasts, I'm proud of it. And it's www.pyramidstopancakes.com. The more people that participate, the more also our voices can contribute to everybody's. Thank you very much.